We're at St Michael's College on City Road. As part of a thing with Sydney University, Cardinal Pell has come here to talk about Catholicism. And he's also been quite nice to buy me Freddo Frog, which I think is quite cool. Cardinal Pell, how do you feel Catholicism is doing with students at Sydney University?
Well, certainly we're doing better than we were when I came to Sydney 5 years ago. As you can see, we've got a good nucleus. There have been 40 or 50 or 60 people here at the lunch. There was about 40, 45 people at the Mass. And you'd have, 300 or 400, Robert, who come in and out at different stages? Or
Well, it's hard to keep the exact number, but I'm happy with the numbers, but I'd love to get 300. I don't know if it's up to that level, but it's hard work at times, and we just keep plugging away. We see new people every semester, and I'm happy about that.
So the numbers have increased since 5 years ago.
Oh yeah, definitely. It was very, very small. The biggest, for many years, the biggest Catholic group anywhere in Australia was the Catholic Asian Student Society, run by Sister Teresa, who's here. They're still a very most of them are Chinese, local Chinese or overseas Chinese. They were very strong. But I think this group now would be rivaling them in size.
Just a question about Da Vinci Code, as I mentioned earlier. I actually tried to read it, and it was a very, very badly written book, and I couldn't get past chapter 2 because it was so bad. I did notice that the Catholic Church made a big deal about trying to take apart and dismantle the Da Vinci Code on factual basis, but I would have thought maybe they would have made it more a focus on just what a badly, poorly written book it was. What do you think about that?
Well, I actually read the book and finished it, and I think you were applying very rational criteria. It's a potboiler. It's written in a particular style, and it races along. Yeah. So that at the end of a chapter, you're left hanging, and then it goes on to another topic, and so you're inclined, you have to continue to read it. Now, it's no classic, and I think the storyline at the end is pathetic. But and I think I reviewed it in the Sunday Telegraph on a couple of different occasions, and I said that it's a lot of rubbish. But I mean, many people are interested to know whether, in fact, whether our Lord and Mary Magdalene were lovers, whether they were children, and a lot of the historical claims were absolute nonsense. So it's important that the Church puts out what are the historical facts.
I'm not actually a Catholic or a Christian myself, but coming from an outsider's perspective, it would seem to me that the truly important things about Catholicism and Christianity in general would happen to be the teachings of Jesus, not necessarily what he did with his personal life. Why is it there's such a big deal made about his personal life when, if his teachings are correct, shouldn't that be the important part?
Well, it's not quite as simple as that. There's some little truth in what you say, but it's that's the way we'd approach, say, a politician today. But
right.
But Christ didn't claim to be a politician or a celebrity. The first claim for anyone who's seriously interested in Christianity is whether Christ is another interesting teacher, or whether Christ is a manifestation of the divine in a unique way, whether Christ is the Son of God. So it's really important what Christ claimed that he was and whether this is true or not. Because if he was off his head and he'd made stupid claims about who he was, while some of his other teachings might be beautiful, we wouldn't be particularly interested in following him.
But can't he be the Son of God and a divine incarnation and still get married?
Yeah, I think he could have got married, but it's an interesting question that he chose not to. But I can see no, because marriage is a good thing in the Christian dispensation.
Well, that's my point.
And having children is a good thing. Yeah. It's a bit unfashionable in the Western world at the moment. But
Do you see that? Sorry, again. Do you see that as a real problem? Because a declining birth rate, just in terms of pure mathematical statistics, leads to a vast array of very, very serious problems. And it seems to have become fashionable, especially at university, to consider that getting married, having children is old-fashioned and not really the right thing to do. Do you see this declining birth rate in Australia as a real problem?
well, of course it's a problem. People, and I've been talking publicly about this for about 10 years. When I started speaking publicly about it, there wasn't much other publicity in the mainstream here in Australia. Yeah, I'm sure it's connected with the decline of religion in the West and the absence of hope. If you've got hope, you have children. After the Second World War, after all that suffering, we had the baby boom.
I don't really want to drag politics to this, but I know from speaking to people, especially from speaking to university students, that they've had a lot of their rights taken away in a lot of areas, and they're just coming up and seeing their work choices getting cut. They go to university, they see their classes grow in size, the quality of their education decline, and that everywhere they look, they're getting hope taken away from them. The events at the moment look like they might lead to a very big war, and that they don't really seem to have any reason to hope.
With due respect, that's absolute nonsense.
Cool.
Certainly what you say about the universities and the starving of funds or the decline of funds in real terms, there's some real truth in that. But you are now being confronted with some difficulties, and you're not well equipped for that, your generation, because you're one of the most pampered generations in history. You've done even better than we have.
Well, this is very true, and I agree. Last night, I was at the station, and continuing on the pampered thing, I think comes a loss of sense of responsibility. And at Newtown Station, I came across a man leading up the steps in a pool of blood, and he just tripped, and he'd split his head open, and I saw more than 100 people walk straight past him, and 3 of us stopped to help him out, but more than 100 people just walked past as this man was in a pool of blood. Do you think this also reflects the common attitude of the pampered generation?
Oh, well, I would suspect that many of the people who walked past him weren't just young people.
They weren't.
No, people they wouldn't be sure what they're getting involved in. They're frightened. He might have been robbed, or he might be on drugs, or he might be drunk, or he might be violent. And with the availability of the prevalence of drugs and drug addicts around society, people can be violent and abusive in quite unpredictable ways, in a way which wasn't true even 20 or 30 years ago.
Have you heard of meth?
Meth, I don't think so.
It's a type of rock amphetamine that's become quite prevalent. It's led to an over 1,000-fold increase in psychiatric admissions to amphetamine abuse and things like that. And the thing is that a lot of people, especially around Newtown, they saw this coming before it broke out in a plague proportion like it is now, a very long time ago, but they didn't really have anyone to tell. And so, do you think that's a problem? The people who actually live in the areas of problems, they're able to see what's happening in advance, but they just don't have anyone who will listen?